Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us today. It's our PEG Ad-Hoc Committee. Two things on the agenda is, one is a reappointment of Kurt Daniels, and the other is seeking applicants for a open seat for our PEG Access Board. So before we're going to have our staff just do a quick roll call for us.
Valloran,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Zamer.
Here.
Three present from the committee. You're also joined by Research Counsel Jake Iceland, Legislative Director Brian Jimenez, and Junior Policy Analyst Alyssa Kamara.
Okay, thank you. Quick housekeeping. Is there anything we can do with the lights? If you don't mind. I appreciate that. Okay, well, we'll work on the lights to make it so that no one falls asleep. We're going to start with the reappointment of Kirk Daniels. If you don't mind joining us in the hot seat, please. I didn't get any public comments. Okay, give me a second. I'll check with staff. So, check with staff, see if we have public comment. Kurt, if you don't mind, we're going to let public comment go, and then we'll give you the show. Thank you. Two people. Okay, we got two people for public comment. So we're going to start with public comment. So we'll allow the public to speak on the matter. As always, the public has 3 minutes to speak on the topics that we have in front of us. This is a committee meeting, so I want to make sure we're focused on these topics before we move forward. So I'll let staff read the name of the first resident.
Keith Irish.
I don't know how to do it, Brian.
Okay, Keith, whenever you're ready, we'll start your time whenever you start. Thank you.
For the benefit of people that were not available back on August 5th when I made comments regarding Resolution 8124R, I'm going to reread my public comments at that time. Good evening, Common Council President and the full body of the Council. As you know, my name is Keith Irish, a lifelong resident of Albany, and most of it in the current 9th Ward. I'm making a rare appearance before you tonight because you are introducing Resolution 85-8124, the proposed reappointment of a non-city resident to the Public Education Government Access Oversight Board. First, I would like to say that I believe there is a mistake in the resolution details stating the reappointment would be for another 3 years. The person currently in the position has only served 1 year. I know because I applied for the same position and again was denied being appointed myself. I applied countless times for a PEG board position and have been denied each time. Before the ad hoc committee meets, I want to tell all of you to know that this and to state several problems with the current PEG board in general, as well as the complete operations of Albany's community media channels. First, as I stated last year, a non-city resident should not be appointed to the board, but the current wording of the amended board makeup allows for it, but it should not. PEG board appointments should have to prove their need, desire, expertise, and plans on how they would improve it with their appointment. So an automatic renewal just because they are still interested in serving is not enough. They and others should go through the same process to get appointed. In this case, you should be asking what this person has done over the last year to deserve reappointment, as well as interview new applicants, and then choose from the pool. Overall, the PEG board is oversized and filled with know-nothings and do-nothings, as well as people that don't attend meetings and agencies that no longer exist, like the New School of Media and the College of St. Rose, just to name two. The current body count is 11, but 11 is more than enough to handle the day-to-day operation, even if the PEG board actually met as it should be required to do. I hope you are fully aware that for over 5 years now, Albany has been paying Schenectady $10,000 a year for doing programming and scheduling of Albany's channels. Boy, what a mistake that has been for the PEG board. By now, the required hardware and software needed to internally operate and control the community media channels would have been paid for. This needs to be changed sooner than later, as the PEG board, as you can tell, does not have Albany's best interest in mind. I blame it mostly on the current administration and its connections to PEG board members and to Schenectady, collusion at its best. I got one sentence. And why are Common Council meetings not shown live within Albany, yet they can view Schenectady Council meetings not only live but in prime time. Thank you for your attention. Hope you have learned something tonight, and see you at the ad hoc meeting, which is where we are now.
Thank you, Keith.
You're welcome.
Next speaker?
Our next speaker is Mark Karanich.
Do I have to state my address or my name? Is that the protocol?
Yeah, yes, I mean, whatever you feel comfortable with. If
Okay,
you
my
want to
name
state
is
your
Mark
name.
Ronich. I live at 15 Boylston Drive in Delmar. And I'm here to support the appointment of Kirk Daniels to the PEG board, reappointment. But I also would like you to refine the process, and I agree with what Keith said wholeheartedly. So I really believe that you need to open up the process more. As Keith mentioned, there's room for one out-of-town resident, resident that's not in the city. And I'm not in the city, and I'm qualified to possibly be a member of the PEG board. I was vice chair at one point, but life got in the way. But, you know, there's no real way of knowing when these appointments are up. There's no email that goes out to people who speak about PEG all the time. There aren't that many people who are interested in PEG, and I really believe that, you know, you should be sending out notices. The committee should be sending out notices to the people who are interested in this operation. You need to have more hours down at to open up the studio, not just in the morning, not just one night during the week. There's so many other things that need to go on that are not being done because you're not putting enough resources into that studio, and it's just not fair. It's not fair to the people, to the residents of the city, and I really believe that more needs to be done, and no one on the board really wants to speak up. But I think you should have a process where, you know, you interview several candidates, including the incumbent, and then you choose. Even if you reject everyone else and you choose the incumbent at the end of the process, at least you're giving other people the chance to be heard. And that's so important in the capital city here. We have a great city, and we want to make it even better. And I also am not in favor of that $10,000 that goes to Schenectady. We could certainly use that more, we could have better use of it here, staying in the city. You know, the mayor is on the board of Proctor's where OSM is housed, and I believe that she wanted to contribute the 10,000 to the to OSM, and I just think that's a conflict there. So you should be looking into this more and stopping that from happening. My time is up. I appreciate your listening, and I'm happy to have a monologue. So anytime. Thank you, and all the best. The best of success.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Okay, I think that concludes public comment. Okay. Thank you again. With that, Mr. Daniels, if you don't mind taking the hot seat again, please.
Kirk Daniels, presently a board member at this particular time. And I want to address the fact that I am doing a lot of things for the PEG board as well. Basically, like I said, I got a confirmation of the tours that I'm basically establishing as far as the high school students. That's basically I'm taking and doing tours at my old station at Channel 10, which I served roughly for like 45 years. And along the way, as far as what, I also consulted the fact that I'm actually doing a tour for WMHT for the students of Albany High School, the juniors and seniors. So my track record sort of speaks for itself, and I would like to get reappointed to this particular assignment again.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Councilmember Hyde.
Thank you for coming in. You briefly mentioned you are doing a lot. If you could just touch on a few of the initiatives that you're working on.
I'm sorry? Say it
If
again.
you said you're currently doing a lot,
Yeah.
if you could just touch on a few of the initiatives.
Yeah, I work with Teresa Story there, basically, for the Albany High School. And her and I work together, you know, when I was the studio coordinator, but I got, you know, a background in that. I did that for like 5 years and such. So, I mean, my work sort of speaks for itself. I work in conjunction, and I, you know, go down to the studio, of which some of the other members don't really do. But we go down, and I work in conjunction with the studio coordinator. And if there's any things as far as equipment is concerned, we work on it together sometimes.
Councilmember Samer.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm aware of some of the programs that you do with Albany High students. My kids have benefited from it, so thank you for
Okay.
that. And I'm just curious, if you are reappointed, what's sort of one of your, besides the high school program, is there another initiative that you're hoping to pursue, either to start or to finish? What else is?
Well,
What's another
the main
project?
goal is to work with the high school and try to get that established. And I'm looking to, you know, try to, like I said, work with the current studio coordinator and understand her policies and what she's doing. And like I said, I'm working right along with her, sometimes even doing shows. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? Okay, I got a couple of questions, Kirk, if you don't mind me. So you've been on the board for now a little bit more than a year. Can you share a little bit about your experiences on the board, what you think has worked well and what you think some challenges that, you know, could use some energy?
Well, one of the challenges that I had was I was actually working with the churches. And considering my background as far as churches are concerned, I'm a member of Israel AME Church, the oldest black church there is in the Capital District. And I actually did a live show, which is the first one that we've done remotely, with the Morning Star Baptist Church. And they did a 2-hour session with that. And we were, it was a first major challenge of the new equipment there and everything else, basically. But surprisingly enough there, within 2 days, a complete turnaround to get it on board at Open Stage Media. So that was a challenge. And like I said, it was also working in conjunction with the new studio coordinator, along with myself here. We managed to get it done in 2 days.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay. Do you have any questions for us or any other information you'd like to share?
Is there anything you guys expect from me at this particular point?
I mean, well, you've got 45 years in the broadcasting experience, so I mean, your experience beyond your time with the board was a significant decision maker when we met last time. I know you worked, you were the coordinator for our Albany channel for many years, so that's all information that I know we took in consideration last time, and I'm sure it's going to be taken into consideration again this time. And I think we all appreciate the fact that, well, let me say this, we appreciate the fact that anyone is willing to put themselves out there to volunteer for these positions. I just want to make sure that's very clear for everyone in the, who may be watching online, that, all of these are volunteer positions. So the fact that we have so many people that are interested, that says a lot about the individuals that are coming forward and willing to put their name forward and willing to put themselves out there. So I want to make clear we appreciate the fact that we have so many dedicated residents to our city. And we appreciate it and value your time, the time you've given to the board, and the fact that you're willing to continue to give that time is something that we don't want you to think that's not something that we recognize. Because sometimes that, sometimes we don't get to speak to all the board members during the work that they do. So when we do have them in front of us, we emphasize that we do recognize the work you do, we do recognize the time that's given. Please make sure that you leave here knowing that. I'll tell you, one of the things I like is just to make sure that the PEG board is working actively. That, I know we had issues in the past with making quorum. So for me, it's very important that people make meetings, make sure people make this a priority in their very busy schedule. We know it's a volunteer position, but if we don't have people to attend and make the quorum, then we can't get business done. So for me, that's something that's important. Everything else is great, but if you got all these wonderful programs going and can't make the meetings, well, then maybe we should find a different role or a different way to use that energy. I appreciate the fact that you're doing both. You're coming, doing the meetings, you're doing what you have to do, you're making sure we're making our numbers, but then you're also looking for new ways to get other people engaged and other young people involved. You asked what we want. You asked what I want. Other board members have anything they want to add on? No? Okay. Anything else you want to say?
No, like I said, I think you got a real good potential as far as the PEG board is concerned. They work real hard. The whole establishment as far as the Channel 10, the Channel to Albany station is concerned. You got a lot of potential there. And it's, you got new equipment, and I can see a great jump in as far as going further with Channel Albany.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Mhm.
And thank you again.
Okay.
With that, do I have a motion to move forward with a positive recommendation, Resolution 85.81.25R?
I'll make a motion to move Resolution 85/81/24R out of committee with a favorable recommendation.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor? Okay, so that passes unanimously. Okay, thank you for your time again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, and from there we move forward. Now we've got several applicants for a open spot. I'm gonna let staff take the lead. I know staff set up those interviews, so if you can let us know who's on the docket first, please.
We have Dan Platt.
Good evening. Pleasure to share the room. Dan Platt, 187 Elk Street in Ward 3.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for taking time to meet with us today and for your interest in this position. Can you share a little bit with us about your background and why you've decided to, your interest in this role?
So I'm a lifelong resident of Albany. Just runs in the family to be active in my community, and I've been active in Albany community and social welfare and civil society in general since 2012 in a matter of capacities, community projects. And it was since 2015 that running for office, I was interviewed by somebody in the Channel Albany studio, and I was introduced to this resource. And I was learning about it. It was only 3 or so years old at the time, and so thus the potential's there. And a year or so later, I want to do community media of my own, as well as take part in an actual community project that makes community media, because there's food deserts and there's also information deserts. There's a lack of information and the distribution of that information, whether it be news, events, what's going on. There's always there's a hunger for it, and it's just always unfulfilled in a way. It's left to word of mouth or Facebook sharing. And so, and based on the current situation at Channel Albany, and also that video is more intensive, I chose to go with community radio at Grand Street Community Arts. And it was there that I produced a show for a number of years, and then eventually stepped up to manage it a little bit, at least on the technical side. So that included, but it was also, I was kind of coordinating the station without such a title, by the way. But I was training new people, and that meant we were off the air for a bit, and that meant filling up the schedule again and learning kind of how many, based on a weekly schedule, that roughly 30 programs at least are needed to kind of fill that out. And there is a world of opportunities and possibilities out there to have programming from every kind of civil society organization, and of course just individuals being entrepreneurial. And all of that is sort of channel what? The Channel Albany is kind of an unknown. It's in a little corner. And, an example, I go to the Channel Albany YouTube page, because I'm a millennial. I'm not buying a Spectrum cable account, and I want to interact with public meetings or whatever. I can go to the Facebook pages, but there needs to be a sort of clearinghouse way that everyone can access this stuff. And so there needs to be the effort to do that. And that's I'm just outlining my agenda, what I want to see happen, what I'd be pushing and working on, and whatever means that needed to make that happen. Because as am active in civil society, it's very much based on who you know and who you're talking to at any particular time. It's hard, and otherwise you're kind of completely in the dark. And there's only so much bar conversation you can manage, or especially if you don't care for bars. Does that cover it?
There was no right or wrong answer.
Of course. But that's generally why I'm interested, to fill the information desert in Albany.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Councilwoman Samer.
Thank you, and thank you for being here and for your interest in this position. I'm not a millennial, but I also don't have Spectrum cable. So what are your ideas for bringing, if you have, I am putting you on the spot, what are your thoughts or your ideas about how to make Channel Albany accessible to everyone?
So expanding programming is kind of first, because for usually when it comes to things people do voluntarily, let's say the number of people coming to, say, a school concert will be the parents of the children in the concert. Likewise, the more people who have programming or interacting, points of engagement with Channel Albany programming, the more people know about it, the more people using it, and the more people who are just getting something. So an outreach plan, or having an outreach coordinator, and whatever funding that's needed or whatever's left over. I've looked at the budget so that, there's 10 grand left after paying the studio coordinator. There should also be some kind of outreach coordinator. On the programming side, I would take it as a personal project to outreach to every civil society org, WMHT is mentioned. Could they have programming if they videotape some of their shows? It's radio, but I know that many radio stations will also have video. And almost everyone, whether it's through TikToks and other types of online streaming media, there's video there. What would it take? And it's probably an easier ask than it seems. Even if it's just 1 out of 10 say, sure, I'll connect what I'm doing to the Channel Albany feed, and then that can circulate more broadly, because any creator is looking to expand their audience. And so just doing a general tour, contact as many as possible, even if it's just more of a canvas. So there'll be lots of no's, but you gotta ask first.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, I'm going to ask a couple quick questions. I think you heard some of my priorities, some basics that I'm looking for. Do you see yourself having a problem making this a priority and making this something that, if there's a conflict of interest between a meeting for the PEGs or another activity you may have going on, that you'll make this the priority to make sure we have quorum?
The only conflicts I see is if I see myself also as a producer, like I want to pick up the camera and start going to public events, taping things, and kind of be active that way. But otherwise, when I join something, especially with something that with actual responsibilities, I'm in all the way. There's no backing out. And whatever I'm doing, I care about it. I wouldn't be here if I didn't care. And as far as conflicts are concerned, I'm not aware of any conflicts I might have. I work for SUNY admin, and that wouldn't cross at all unless it's chancellor's fireside chats. But again, that would just be a point of contact, and if that's a conflict, then I think everybody's in trouble.
Thank you. No, so years ago we had issues making quorum. And
With
because
who?
we had issues years ago making quorum,
Oh, yes.
or people being able to attend. Many because they had multiple commitments, and those multiple commitments spread people very thin. So one, like I said before, one of my priorities is to make sure that we're going to have people that are going to be committed to attend the meetings, to be active participants within the meetings, and make sure we don't have a conflict, to be able to have active meetings where people things and actions can be acted on.
Yes, I'm very much in that mode of, I want, if all 11 members took on some kind of project, I think that everything would be in much better shape. Just as Kirk has his project of the studio tours and helping out in the studio. I would take on program engagement, program, outreach of sorts to bring people in. I have, most of my commitments to other organizations are more fluid. I pretty much have 2 that aren't, and they're just monthly meetings. And I would be one of the people pushing, because the bylaws are being reviewed. I saw in the minutes from the last 2 meetings. The current bylaws of this are being looked at. I would push to make the meetings monthly. And I think lack of, the not meeting quorum is usually the reason you cut back on the number of meetings a year. But if everyone's doing something, then that's not a problem with the number of meetings, that's a problem with the makeup of the board, which, you're asking me about.
Yes, and we had to address that issue a few years back by making some.
Yeah, I'm aware, and that's sort of why I shifted to Grand Street instead, actually, because if the management isn't there, even if it is top down, at least it's there. But if it isn't, then there's no point. There's less likelihood of participating.
Okay. Any more information or anything else you'd like to add at this point?
No, I'm just kind of looking at the letter I submitted and sort of, there's an anemic state of local journalism, and I'd love to, it's just even just getting what the content that people are already making. There's so much out there already, and even in an organic way, when I was rebuilding the programming at WCAA LP at Grand Street, I was just organically recruiting people. And even just doing in that fashion, people are excited, they show up to be trained, they want to get started. And there are tons of people that want to get started, but in the past and maybe the present, there's just a lot of barriers. Studio hours is a barrier. Maybe the professionality of when they show up and what's available, what can be done. I think when I was in the studio, it was again 2015, but like the operator was pretty listless and kind of seemed like, he didn't want to be there. Everyone should always want to be where they are if a good job is going to be done. And things are going to be effective, especially in the public sector, as you know full well. Otherwise, anything else I can add? No. Only that, like, there would be a limited capacity for me to fully engage in program making. So even though I could say I would want to, it would just be a temptation. But otherwise, like, you always want to do more, especially when there's so much need. But you got to pull back and say, this is how many hours I can commit, and I will do one project.
I don't think, yes, and I don't think there's any limit on someone being on the board and if they want to do any type of product. I don't think there's any limit on that I'm aware of. So, again, it would be up to your discretion how much you want to commit to on that side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions from committee members? One last time. No? Okay. Anything else you want to add before we?
No, only that I relish the opportunity if given. I would put my heart and soul into it, even if it is until June. But that's sort of why it would actually put the pressure, like, yeah, I need to accomplish something if I'm going to be given this opportunity. It's not something to fill a seat, because, all seats are valuable, I guess.
Well,
Should be
thank you.
treasured.
No. Thank you. Thank you
All right.
again.
Be well, everybody.
Okay, go back to staff. I know we have.
Our next applicant would be Deborah Brown.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, thank you for joining us today,
Thank you.
and thank you for your interest in joining the PEG board. If you can please just share with us a little bit about yourself and why you've applied for this position.
Okay, thank you. As indicated, my name is Deborah Brown. I am a resident here in Albany. I've lived here in Albany about 35 years now. I came to Albany from the New York City area, although I'm originally from Newburgh, New York. It's about 90 miles down state. I'm retired. Retired as Assistant Commissioner with the New York State Education Department. Professional career has always been working with individuals with disabilities. I worked as my profession as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. I am currently the president of the Albany NAACP. I've always worked with people. I have always worked in a service delivery area. I value communication and information. With the NAACP, we recognize that information is power, and as people are informed and know the ideas that they're able to do more, they're able to participate in more things. There's greater understanding. It helps with a diversity in interest and interaction with people. And so, coincidentally, in the last couple of months, I was in different venues, and there was conversation about the Albany Channel. I didn't know a lot about it then, and so not thinking that this wasn't just a coincidence, maybe I need something to look into, and then someone mentioned to me about a position being open on the board, and so I decided, given my own interest, I decided to apply, and that's just the reason I'm here.
Okay, well, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Councilmember Hyde.
And thank you for coming in this evening. I think one question we'd like to ask all the applicants is just any ideas or initiatives you may have to increase the visibility of Channel Albany. Like you said, you didn't know a lot about it to start, so just from what you've kind of dug into, do you have any ideas what you can bring to the board?
I think it's, one of the things I would want to look in is how do people learn about it now? What are the current mechanisms? And if there's anything there that can be expanded upon, or any new ideas or new way that people either coming to the Albany area for the first time, is this part of information that's shared with them? It's students, how do they know that this information is available, or this channel is available? And then what type of programs are on there, the diversity of the programs, and does it pull in the interest of a diverse community? And how do we make that happen if it isn't there? Not meaning that I'm not speaking of any negative things that are happening now, but how do we expand on what's happening now? I consider myself a kind of informed person, and not to have, I knew of the channels, but didn't know exactly where to get them. I happen to go to Facebook. I'm not a techie person, and I'm sure there's a lot of people like me that are not as familiar with some of the systems or how to connect with things. And so do people know that they can find things on Facebook? And I heard someone talk about YouTube. Do people understand and know, and how do they know how to access it? And if someone has an idea about, a particular show that could be on the channel, how do they get that communicated to people? Again, another way of garnering interest to use. We currently, with the NAACP, we have a project at Albany High that in civic engagement. That's something I'm thinking that we could have that may have been, could have been recorded and shared for, because it's student-centered. It's students talking about civic engagement, what that means to them, how that shows up in their community. And as a result, they develop projects that they present at the end of the year, and it's part of the global studies program. How do we share that across around us to show not only the positive things that are coming out of the students at Albany High, but how community programs in Albany High are working together to help students meet their academic needs. And so it's looking at those types of things and how do we use what exists, how do we expand upon what we have.
Thank you. So my questions, same one I'm asking all the candidates. You've got a lot on your plate. You're the president of the NAACP, so you've got a lot of community commitments. If you were to be moved forward, can you give us the guarantee that you would make this a priority? You know, you've got X amount of meetings you've got to make, and we want to make sure people attend and show up and can put in their input, but also make sure we have quorum so that we can have any actions taken by the board.
Yeah.
So do you think you'd have any issues making the meetings and making the commitments that are expected?
Yes, I don't think I would have any problems making the meetings. And once I've made the commitment, then I am committed to the project. So I don't foresee a problem. And I think also it's helpful that I am retired. Sometimes that's the difficult thing if you're working and still trying to be engaged in a number of community activities.
Being retired is a good place to be, so good for you.
But sometimes, yes.
Yes, well, thank you for your many years of service
Thank you.
to our state. Any other questions? No other question? Okay, excellent. Do you have any other information you want to share with us before we let you go?
No, I don't think there's any, not that I can think of off the top of my head, other than what I've shared with you in my resume and my bio. I think in general, as I already indicated, I'm a community person. I have one son who's an adult, who went through Albany Public School system. I think one of the things, as I shared with you, I've worked with individuals with disabilities, my professional career. And I think that's something else that I look to strive to be more integrated in community activities is, you know, the needs of individuals with disabilities and how that's incorporated in the project, how that's incorporated in information that's shared. Sometimes people look at individuals with disabilities not being able to do, and that's not the case. The idea is, how do you bring them into your process? How do you bring them into that they can participate because you've made it accessible, as opposed to not looking at that kind of approach to addressing a need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you again for applying and putting yourself out there and being here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good evening.
Okay.
Keith Irish, if you were still, were you willing to come up to talk about your application? All right, so it's Keith Irish next and last.
Okay, Keith, thank you for joining us. Tell us,
Entirely welcome.
tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd be interested in the position.
Well, as you know, I've been very active and vocal for a long time. with improving the current PEG situation, not only for government meetings, but for city-based organizations such as Deborah's, you know, for having events covered, recorded, shown, you know, hopefully live, but at least recorded and shown so that everybody that should be made aware of situations, they would be informed of them, where right now there are so many people out there that don't know what's going on. And there's a lack of promotion for sure for the public channels, which is a good and bad at the same time, because currently there's not that much produced as there should be. So I'd say, what would I be looking at? And you'd have to say, well, at the moment, not much, unfortunately. So that would have to be something addressed as it should be right along, you know, to know what's going on. There's lots of 501c3 organizations in the city that provide services to the residents and to other community members that could use another avenue to get their information out. The meetings that are held for like the neighborhood associations and the like could also be shown for the same type of reason, so people are educated. I myself try to go to different neighborhoods to attend their meetings just to learn what's going on in that part of the city, as opposed to my part of the city, so I can see how it reflects on something else. And I'm seeing information all the time that people do not know what's going on. And they wonder, you know, how come this isn't getting done, that isn't getting done, and similar to that. It also applies to the way the city government departments run. They have various regulations, ordinances, laws, whatever you want to call them, depending upon the agency, as well as information that should be distributed out. Pick on recreation. They have all the activities for like kids, and now they're trying to expand their senior program, but that information is not getting out unless you happen to find a place where they put their flyers. DGS for things such as like when there's snow emergencies called in the wintertime, or that they sell lawn bags, or that you're not supposed to put your trash out before a certain time and pick them up after a certain time. People move in the city, they don't get informed of this information because they don't have an easy avenue to find that. And that would be something that would be easily created. And if I remember correctly, when Mr. Gronick was on the board, he and I started doing some of that information, but it all disappeared when the board thought it was good to be connected with Schenectady. All of that disappeared. We even had information about the Common Council members. That all disappeared. So, you know, you're not seeing stuff that already partially existed that we started to do. We also started to do a informational brochure that would be distributed at the various like street fairs or fests and things of that nature. And we only got like one draft of that done, and we said, oh, we can't do promotional material. And it's like, why not? How are people going to know what channel already is if you don't promote it? So, you know, it's not getting done, you know, to inform the people. Just like recently now, we had what was it? Give me a second to think about it. 2 weekends ago, we had Mississippi Day. And unless you saw where they distributed the flyers to, you didn't know about it. There was some other street fairs up in the Sheridan Hollow area a couple months ago. I didn't know about them until the day before they were held. And I went to them to see who was there and what was being distributed and things like that for information purposes. And that's the kind of promotion that should be getting done. as well as like, naturally things like Tulip Fest and various similar organizations. I believe it was back in May, Ms. Brown could correct me, but there was at least one forum for the candidates running for the assembly position. And there was somebody there with a big iPad screen that was putting that out on YouTube. But there was nobody there from Channel Albany recording it, or for that matter, transmitting it live, as there should have been. 4 years, well, not 4 years ago, 3 years ago, when it was the mayor's season for elections, as well as your positions back then. There wasn't too many opponents for the Common Council, but there was several for the mayor. I myself created a lot of the technical hardware to record those 5 debates that were done, and Mr. Gronick organized them and hosted them. And not one of them got shown. Not one, except on his YouTube channel. They got submitted, to go put on the air, but at that time Schenectady was in control, never got shown. But it's funny that Schenectady mayor debates were shown not only live, but recorded, and shown again and again and again until the meetings were held. So that's informing the public, and that's what community media is supposed to do, inform the public. I'm glad that recently you're finally, because of me saying something about it, frankly, about finally having the Common Council meetings up there, because that's something that should have been done even with it being in control in Albany, as opposed to Schenectady. That fiasco, as I've indicated before, was supposed to be a 50-50, and it's nowhere near 50-50. There's so much stuff you can see about Schenectady that happens, but Albany, usually I wind up seeing the Common Council meetings rerun at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know which meeting it is, because they're not being labeled to indicate what meeting it is, or for that matter, what's being discussed. And that's something that a staff person either should be doing here, over in the corner where the equipment is, or for sure being done in the studio. But if the studio is not properly staffed, it can't get done. And the current studio coordinator has got many other priorities. And being in the studio is not one of them. I can tell you that for sure. So there's a lot of different things that can be done, should be done, ought to be done. I think that highlights some of the things to answer that question.
Thank you, Kate. Questions from committee members? Councilmember Zeman.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Irish, for being here.
You're welcome.
My question is, what in your background or what in your experience would prepare you to help move the PEG board in the direction that you want it to go in? How do you think you could move the board forward the way that you think it needs to be? You're dealing with a lot of different personalities, a lot of people.
Right, that's for sure. The first thing would probably eliminate what I refer to as the dead weight, because there are positions on the board that are not needed anymore, as the way it was set up under Jerry Jennings back in 2011 or 2012. They were considered stakeholders because nobody in Albany had the expertise at that time on how to do this, how to do that. So everybody had something different, like the library was the host. The New School of Media was the go-between between the programming of the shows and the cable company, Time Warner at the time. The Albany school system was supposed to provide, way back then, like interns, or provide students to learn technology in the studio a little bit, as like an intern. And let's see, who was the first one? Excuse me for a second. Mark? the fourth company? School board, new school, library, oh, St. Rose. St. Rose was the other one. They were involved supposedly to do training classes. And they were only doing them during the summer. And I had many people saying to me, why don't they do them also like during the winter session, winter recess time frame? Because they weren't available during the summer because they were involved with like, Little League and things like that. So they would be interested to take the training classes, but they couldn't. And then, of course, St. Rose stopped doing them because they weren't getting promoted, that those classes were even available. And then now, of course, St. Rose is gone. So that position there would be like something to be, for sure, eliminated from the board.
And you feel that these, I guess my question is more about building consensus within a system, within a board. Is this, these are big things that you're talking about changing, obviously, the seats that are no longer being filled or used, St. Rose, I mean, that's, they're obsolete seats now.
Right, well, the new school of media one was refilled by your authorization, I think it was 2 August ago, to replace that position, where I at the time said, now's the time to start cutting back on the members of the boards. And it wound up being somebody from Siena College. And it's like, why Siena College when there's like SUNY Albany that has media classes and media students, to have them involved? And I've talked to people at SUNY, and they said they would be interested in looking into that if that became the case, because none of the other colleges do that right now. And I've talked to a few nonprofits that offer, one in particular that does like audio presentations, training. They have their own sound booths and things like that. And they were even said to me they could be even maybe interested in hosting the studio for the TV part of it, while they are doing the audio part as something they're teaching the students that they have. Let's call them kids, not students. That because of the age difference. And that's what also has to be done too, is get people involved that, that make like their own videos now with their cell phones and things like that, to get them involved to see that there's other ways of producing things. I think that answers you.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, kid, I got a couple questions. Nothing, same one I gave before, about the time commitment, and you being able to make the meetings. I know you make our meetings, and I'm sure you would be. I know you make some of the meetings now, I know.
Oh, yes. I make them now, yes.
So just for the record, just because I've asked all the other candidates, I'm going to be consistent with my questioning. Would you be able to commit that if you were to be, your name was to be moved forward, you would be able to make the meetings and make sure that, any other commitments you may have wouldn't conflict with your commitment to be present when needed, and make sure that there's quorum with the organization so that actions can be moved forward?
No, I see no problem with that, because I basically have been attending meetings anyway as a member of the public. And it would also help if the meeting dates were consistent as they used to be, as opposed to bouncing around from day of the week of the month, and things like that, because they used to be consistently the second Thursday of the month. And now they could be the third week, a Tuesday, a Wednesday. It's like the next meeting coming up is the third week on a Wednesday. Now, thankfully, it's not on the second Thursday this month, because there is a trade show, conference expo type of vehicle that I'm going down to New York City to attend at my own expense, to be more educated on the equipment and how they function and what would be good and what would be better for us to use. And I've been to a lot of them in the past. I haven't been into too many recently, but in the past I have been. But there's one coming up, you know, on the 9th and the 10th of October that I plan on going to down in New York City.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, do you have anything else you want to share with the committee?
Not in particular, without getting into lots of details and lots of information that you know I have the capability of and have the knowledge for. So it would be a different kind of meeting, I should say. It's like when the franchise meeting comes up, when those are held. There'll be some questions about that.
Well, I just want to tell you, Keith, I know you mentioned in your public comment that you've applied for this position in the past and you haven't gotten it. I want to just let you know it's never personal and it's never a slight on you or an attack or a hit on you. I just want you to know that. You know, I think we value the fact that you come and you share with us and that you're committed to this cause. So I don't want you to walk away feeling that you know, that isn't the case. You know, your public comment the other day, I think, and I know it's not just me saying these words, your public comment the other day made it so that the franchise, instead of leadership, switched from having to come to the Ad-Hoc committee to go to the planning, a standing committee. So, so I'm saying that just to re-emphasize that, you know, these are tough decisions that are not easy, because you've got a lot of great people that are all interested and committed to our community that are applying. And when we review it, we're looking at, you know, what's best for the organization, how to bring in new ideas into the organization, how to keep the organization working efficiency and consistently. You know, it's not easy. I can tell you that much.
No,
So-
you definitely don't. You have to be, you have to be committed is probably the easiest way to say it, though that could be taken two ways. But you have to be committed to it. I know people that have worked, that I've met at a lot of expos and shows in the past that I went at my own expense, that have now retired because they've been doing it for like 40 years. They were hired when their city started, and that's all they've done. You know, that's all they've done. So they've now retired because they had well, let's say the control of it in one form. Some of them weren't set up the way Albany is set up, but they had, you know, the organizations to know how long somebody was there. And it's just amazing how, you know, somebody could be in that field for 40 years and appreciate being in that field to know it. So that's why the younger people should also get in on it.
Well, thank you. And I just wanted to say that because I do want you to know that we do value your input. So I hope that no matter that you don't feel like your input isn't taken seriously and your input isn't valued, because it is. And
I hope so, because I know
publicly.
Yeah,
I
a few
wanted to
things
hear that.
I've brought up, you've finally been doing, yes.
Well, thank you, sir. With that, Keith, you're out of the hot seat.
I think I was the last one.
And
Yes.
you're good to go, Keith. Thank you. So for these issues, we go into executive committee for the privacy of those residents who've applied for these positions. We want to make sure that we can have these discussions and respect the privacy of those individuals and respect those private conversations. So I'm going to ask for a motion for executive session.
I move to go into executive session to discuss the matter of appointment of a particular person to the Public Education and Government Access Oversight Board.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor in going to executive session? Aye. Okay, so at that point, we go into executive session. When we're in executive session, all members of the public, we ask you to exit the chamber. Thank you again for your time and your energy for being here, and we wish you all a wonderful evening. We will close out executive session. If anyone wants to stay, you're all welcome to stay outside of the chambers, but we will end the meeting. We'll come out of executive session and end the meeting when we're done deliberating. Thank you.